Welcome to the Powercat Podcast, the original K-State sports show. Now let's go to the rolling Flint Hills, home of the Cats and Dogs studio. Here's your host, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to another edition of the Powercat Podcast. Fitz and Gills and Big B sitting in today in the third chair. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome.
Hello.
So we've been working on schedules. Both Go Powercat and the Big 12 Insiders. Of course, Big B hosts our show over there on the Big 12 site. Ryan Gilbert, we have an interesting lineup of video podcasts that will also be podcast available 4 days a week, don't we? It's pretty cool.
It's going to be awesome.
Yep. We're going to release them at midnight, the day they actually go out. So Tuesday will be the K-State Insiders. I'll be honest, we should have done one this week, but we didn't because this moving press conferences to Monday threw me off. And Glenn Kinley, if you don't know, is leaving the area. I think yesterday was his last day in Topeka, and he's off. I don't know if he's announced it yet, but I'll say it.
Has not yet.
He hasn't yet?
He's not yet. I texted him just a little bit ago. He told me to wait till tomorrow as we're recording this.
Okay. So we'll pop that cork on that liquid fun another day, but he's got a great job. I'm very happy for him. So we have to reorganize a little bit. Anyhow, that'll go live midnight, Tuesday morning, Monday night, however you want to look at it. Followed by this podcast the next day, the Powercat pregame podcast on Thursdays and Fridays leading up to the game. Of course, it's the Friday walkthrough with Cole Carmody and Monty Spiller. But over on the Big 12 side, Big B, we got some cool stuff cooking 5 days a week. You want to run through the schedule?
Yeah. So basically, we're going back to 5 days a week. Monday, obviously, it'll be a recap. We didn't do a recap this Monday because there was nothing to recap, but we'll be doing recap shows on Monday, Tuesdays, including today. We're recording this today anyway. We'll have our power rankings that come out. Wednesday, we're going to kind of focus, get some publishers out there, focus on a couple of teams. And just previews, basically, of those teams for the week. Thursday is the real day that I'm looking for. Thursday and Friday. Thursday is going to be what's called Big 12 Insiders Game Day, kind of our version of what ESPN's Game Day is. Have 4 different publishers on and myself just talking about the Big 12, discussing some topics and just going from there, just talking football and the relevance of the Big 12 conference. And then on Friday is going to be our betting line. My man, Ryan Gilbert, we're going to get him. He doesn't know it yet, but we're going to get him in there some days. We'll get Kelly in Vegas. Obviously, a lot of K-Staters know her. She'll be on this Friday. We're going to get a lot of different people to come in and just give betting lines for the week, not only for K-State games, but all Big 12 games. So I'm really excited about Big 12 Insiders. Make sure you follow and subscribe if you haven't already.
Why would you have Ryan Gilbert on if you can have Kelly in Vegas on? I mean, no offense, man. You can take her all you want. I'm not as good as her.
Well, but she may not be available every week.
Exactly.
You are.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that we're canceling her and saying, no, we got to have Gilbert on. You know, we're using you as a backup if she can't come on. Let's just keep it real here.
We should have me on every week so people know to bet the opposite.
That's very smart. Very smart.
Mm-hmm.
Am I on the depth chart for the Big 12 Insiders? Am I more of just the sole backup, or is there like an or there?
You're more of the practice squad. You're more of a practice squad.
Yeah,
type
there's
of
like
guy.
a depth chart.
We'll call you up if we need. We've got 3 or 4 guys in front of you.
Yeah.
And if they're not available, we will call you up and get you on, All
right. I'll be here waiting for you.
Well, folks, it's game week. As you know, Tennessee Martin rolls into town on Saturday. Kickoff at, 6:30, 6:10? I don't even know. I'm just going to show up. Anyhow, I got it right here. I'll find it. Kickoff is at 6. So I wasn't right at all. 6 p.m. at the Bill. Make sure you're at the fridge by 2, maybe 1. I mean, doesn't the parking lot open 5 hours before kickoff? There we go. Be at the fridge at 1 so you can then just drive up and start your tailgating festivities. As of today, it's not supposed to be too horrible by Kansas August standards. It's, I think, going to be in the low 90s, which we'll take. That means it'll be kind of nice at night. Be 72 and sunny in the press box, and with ice cream sandwich showers. But yeah, So make sure you're supporting the Fridge. They've been a long time podcast sponsors, and I need you to do this. I need you to go in Saturday and say, I heard about you on the Powercat podcast. Thanks for supporting them. We'll see if that works. On with the podcast. Your questions from Wabash Station. I think Ryan Gilbert got them from the subscribers at Go Powercat, but who knows? He makes stuff up all the time, mostly involving women, but it could be here too. Ryan Gilbert, take it away.
Today's questions actually came from people at the Fridge. I just went and surveyed some people, asked them what they wanted to know about K-State football. But from Go Upercat from Wabash Station, first questions from him or her. What position group's depth chart is most likely to look very different before conference play begins? And also from T-Con Man with the depth chart, which or on the depth chart is most surprising?
Well, I wasn't prepared for the or at right guard. I think we all assumed it was Taylor Poitier, and he's got a little competition there. But I think the biggest shakeup might be at D end. They're going to find out what these young guys are about, and also we also need to figure out what this rotation is. They're now listing 3 D ends on the depth chart. What's that mean? And
Right.
where does that come from? And who's that cut into playing time with? How often will they use that third D end as a fourth lineman? We'll find out. But I think we're going to see. I imagine Brendan Mott will continue to start as the veteran who's paid his dues. But I think we're going to see a lot of other guys out there, and maybe Mott will lose that spot, be kind of more of a veteran relief pitcher. We'll see. Maybe not by the start of Big 12. That's awful early, but I can see it happening at some point this season.
Yeah, that was going to be exactly what I said as well. I think it's going to be defensive end by the time conference games get here. And technically, the third game of the season, although not a conference game against Arizona, yeah, I think that's where we're going to see it, because I just don't think you're going to be able to keep the talent off the field. It has nothing to do with any other starters or anything. I just think, look, this is a big season for Kansas State. Not that any season isn't a big season. I just think this is a really big season for Kansas State, one that we can take a step forward to try to be the leader of the Big 12 conference. In doing so, it's time that you put your best players out on the football field, regardless of the situation. And I think that's going to happen. Just like Fitz said, you give upperclassmen at all positions, an opportunity to go out there and play and prove, that they're the guy that should be out there. But I think any program, you're only as good as what your young guys are and what you can develop. That's the mark of a good program. And I believe K-State is doing that. This is the deepest K-State team that we've seen in years. And I think some of that depth, or obviously some of that depth, is from the younger guys. And I just think that's a spot, that's a position that we're going to see something. We're going to see some movement.
I agree. Gills?
Yeah, guys, I was not that Coach Tui was bluffing with the defensive tackles when he talked so highly about Damian Alalio, but the fact that there's no or there and he is the number one on that depth chart, things can obviously change in the coming weeks. But I mean, what he was talking about was true and real. Just how disruptive he can be there, and so we'll see. I'm sure Uso's gonna see the field, but this was kind of a 2-part question. What was most surprising for me? I mean, that was I wouldn't say surprising, but that was just kind of some affirmation that what Coach Tui was talking about was real there at defensive tackle.
Agree. That I totally missed that, but I'm kind of positive or confident, I guess, Taylor Poitier will start, but Andrew Langang will be in there. They need to get him more in-game experience, no doubt about it. He's going to be filling in on those guard positions, maybe even a tackle position. He's going to be the utility guy along that line. So they need him to be ready to play, and we'll see. I was just surprised to see that and maybe Taylor's having ongoing knee issues. I hope not, but we will find out more on Saturday.
It Fitz, we were talking on Monday at the press conferences. There was 13 on offense, and so it's a weird depth chart. It's kind of tricky to take it all in, but there's depth. Obviously, you've got so many guys that I think if you're the coaching staff, that kind of deserve to be on there, get that recognition. So it's interesting to look at, though, for sure.
Yep, 13 offense, 12 defense, 7 special teams. That's a lot of people. And like I said on my daily delivery today, it's all good depth. I mean, you look at special teams, maybe there's some questions there with new talent in those slots, but boy, Dylan Edwards kind of rounded this thing out and made it really deep across the board, because maybe running back depth was a concern. It's not now. And he can just do so many things for you. He bolsters the return game, probably adds a little flavor to the receivers. This is a really deep and talented team.
From El Camino Cat, do you expect to see any true freshmen on the field for the Cats on Saturday?
I won't be surprised. I mean, first of all, they got to get away. They got to pull out from, by early third quarter, have this thing kind of in the bag to see the full depth. But what might slow that down is the fact that they've got a lot of guys on that two deep that don't have a lot of experience. And they're going to get them as much time as they can. So maybe that will block the way of some freshmen. I thought it was interesting that Chris Kleiman just wasn't prepared to offer any names at Monday's press conference. He just didn't want to get into that. I think there's a number of people, but like I said, there's just so many young guys ahead of them that are finding their way. And now last year's class that they continue to rave about is lining up to play, all of them. So that's a lot of the depth, and you got to get those dudes on the field.
Yeah, I mean, I think if K-State gets away, which they should, and hopefully it's earlier than later, that's a big opportunity to get a lot of young guys out on the field. So but even saying that though, Fitz, I think sometimes it's good to get young guys out there early when the game's competitive. Now granted, you want to get your guys out there, you want to get a lead and all that good stuff. But I wouldn't be opposed to getting some young guys out there on the second or third series to just get them out there, and because they're going to have crazy jitters, that's going to happen. Get them out there early, get that out of their system, get the other guys back in. Let's get this thing going, build up a lead, and then get them out there and let them play a lot later. But I think, sometimes, now granted, I don't want all the young guys out there at the same time early. You're going to want to work them in a little bit, even if that means, a snap or two here, a snap or two there, just to get them out there on the field. I think it's a good way to be able to do that versus just waiting till, okay, we got to get a big lead, and then they're going to play at the end of the game. Because, look, guys are smart. Yes, they want to play, but they want to play some meaningful snaps. And when I say meaningful, when the game is still in doubt, they want to be able to do that.
Agree.
We've talked about it a lot on here, how this season just kind of feels different, like the buzz heading into this year with Avery Johnson and everything. There hasn't been much more excitement heading into a year that, in my lifetime, Fitz, and I know Fitz, it's been a long time for you as well covering this team. And so I don't know if the coaches might view the true freshmen or those depth pieces any differently, knowing that this is, you might not be thinking about the end of, you might not be thinking about next year, right? I don't want to get these guys minutes for next year, right? You want to think about this year, what's going to get, my team, if I'm Chris Kleiman or whatever, what's going to get my team the best chance by season's end. If we have injuries, if we have to go down the depth chart, who's going to get us, give us the best chance to win a Big 12 championship, not necessarily thinking about what's best for my program 2-3 years from now, redshirting this guy, having him play that, extra game after he's played his 4 games, stuff like that. I could be putting words into the coaching staff's mouths, but I think that's something that very much they could be thinking about with this year. If they're how we're feeling, right, this is, certainly it feels different than any other year. So they might be thinking more about, winning a Big 12 title, getting the college football playoff, rather than what's next year or down the line.
Agreed.
Big B, you agree with me? I know you like to disagree with me.
I do. I like I said, I want guys to be able to get out there and get some meaningful snaps. That's my whole thing. I just think the quicker that you can get guys out there in a game like this, let's just be honest, it's why you scheduled the game. It's to get as many guys out there as much as possible. I know you guys know this. I've told you a ton of times. I love the new red shirt rules. You get to play so many games for guys. Get as many people in the football game as humanly possible. And I just think that you got to get young guys out there early. Look, they want to play snaps, like I mentioned before. They want to play, but they also want to play when the game's in doubt. because they understand the difference between the two, just like us fans do. They understand it too. So you get them out there again. I'm not saying you got to get them out there, immediately, but the sooner the better.
Big B, how would you feel about just being done with redshirting altogether and say, hey, you got 5 years?
Don't like it.
Don't like it?
That part I don't like. I know there was some stuff out there today that I was in Twitter land or X land, whatever you want to call it, talking about, 5 years. I don't like that. Look, you get a red shirt. Redshirting, number one, people think redshirting is bad. It's not bad. It gives you an opportunity to get into the system, especially when they let you play 4 games.
Yeah.
But 4 is enough because you're going to get into this. Okay, you give somebody 5 years. Okay, great. Well, then you're 23 years old. Well, then they got another year. Or they got hurt. Well, they got hurt 2 years. And then you got 26-year-old guys out there playing college football like we're seeing right now. It's absolutely insane. Look, it's going to sound like sour grapes from a guy like me, but it is what it is. 4 years or 5 years to play 4. That's it. However that happens, that's all you get. We can't just continuously just adding on year after year. We understand guys get hurt, but you know what? It's football. Bones break, ligaments tear. That's going to happen. And you can't just, he kept getting hurt. Well, he got hurt again. Well, there's a guy playing 9 years of college football. What are we doing?
Wait, same thing on this podcast. People get hurt, bones break. Gilbert has a brain bleed.
Daily.
Putting up with me.
From Snarecat3, what things do you need to see against UT Martin to buy into the offseason hype expressed by the coaches?
Big plays. Big plays, both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if you got weapons like you're talking about, starting with Avery, there should just be some plays at a program from the FCS level, no matter how talented for that level, can't fully stop. They just can't. They can't match the speed of a guy. They can't match the blocking up front. There's a difference between these two levels. You have to find a way to accentuate those differences. And their job is to cover those up and turn it into more of a game on even playing field. But it doesn't have to be. I just wondered this. What will be the first play? I think this was a question we had a couple weeks ago, Gills. Well, who will touch the ball the first play? I suspect it'll be DJ Giddens, but I can also see them almost designing something for Avery just to get it out of his system and run. I don't know. I also have flashbacks of Jesse Ertz getting hurt in his very first game as his very first play of his starting career. So I don't know, but they've got a lot of weapons. They should be able to create turnovers. They should be able to have sudden scores. And I expect that from this team, and I expect it starting Saturday.
Yeah, I want to see big plays. I want to see Avery throw the ball from the pocket. I think we should be able to do that. Just simple routes. And simple routes can be deep ones too. When I say simple, I don't want you to think, running a bunch of hitch and a bunch of slants. No. Just throw the ball down the field. I think that the bigger plays that we see from the pocket, the better. I don't want to see him scrambling around out there because that means that either guys weren't getting open or we can't block them, which to me would be troubling. This is a team we should be able to get open against. I don't care what the coverage is. And this is also a team we should be able to block. So Fitz is right. Big plays down the field, whether it's running, throwing, whatever the case may be. I want to see a lot of that because, again, their job, and Fitz, again, you hit it right on the head. Their job is going to be to stop all of that. I think they're going to come in and say, we're going to stop the run. We're going to make you throw it. Okay, great. We'll just throw it over your head. Then what are you going to do? And if that's what we have to do, then that's what we have to do. It might end up being if they put 8 or 9 guys in the box early on, they may stuff our running game early where it looks like, oh, man, we can't run the football. Well, I don't care who's out there. If it's a high school team, if they got 9 guys and you only have 7 to block them, I mean, it is what it is. There's going to be a guy free, at least 2 guys free. So it's just, I just think that sometimes we might get caught up in that. Just throw the ball over their head and back them up. And if they don't back up, just continue to throw the ball over their head. And again, that doesn't mean that you're showing a bunch of stuff on offense. It just means, hey, man, they got 9 guys in the box. They don't want us to run the ball, so we're just throwing it over top of their head. Okay, great. I wouldn't want to see Avery running the football a lot, if at all, in this football game. I don't want to see that. There's no reason for that. They can win the game without him doing that, and I know we may want to see that, or there's going to be plenty of times for him to run the football this year. Against Tennessee Martin, it shouldn't be one of those times.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be easy for him. He's ran the ball so much throughout his career. Like that vision, that's not something that you really need to get a rep in. Like he ran it so much last year. So I agree, Big B. I mean, with the injury concern, you don't want to have him running too much. I agree. You guys nailed it on the head, though, with the explosive plays. That's where I was going to go with this, because that is what the coaches, on Monday talked about, right? They, Chris Kleiman mentioned it, be explosive on offense and defense. But when you look at, and I agree with, letting, throw it down the field or a flea flicker, a trick play, something like that. That's a great way to get explosive. But there's been so much hype about these playmakers, the weapons they have on offense. Okay, go give Dylan Edwards a screen pass and let that be the explosive play. Have him prove to me that he can do that. Give Jace Brown a nice little slant over the middle and have him go, run for 30, 40 yards down the field. That's the explosive plays that I really want to see, that can prove to me that these weapons are legit, because we've talked about this time and again, guys, the wide receiver room for years at Kansas State. There's been so much hype year after year, and it seems like they underperform, not living up to those expectations. And so it's not just the wideouts, of course, it's running backs. There's high standard for Garrett Oakley now at tight end. And so, obviously I would love to see those explosive plays where you just let it go, but also let those playmakers create the explosive plays by getting in space and creating yards.
True. Very true. They just got enough dudes to win this game. It shouldn't be we held too much back and got in trouble. These guys should have the physical capabilities to make plays out of pretty basic plays.
Yeah.
Last question of the first half is from TDE 67. Who are you going to take as your preseason most improved player on this team? I'll butt in here if you guys are still thinking.
I'm going to go Keegan Johnson.
Go ahead. You say Keegan Johnson? You stole my answer.
That's why I rushed in and said that.
But I think that kind of not by definition, but when you look at most improved player, you're talking about somebody that struggled last year, didn't live up to last season's expectations, right? And that certainly fits the mold for Keegan Johnson. And by all accounts, we're expecting big things from him, but it's not unfair to say he underperformed last year. I think that he would probably tell you that himself. And part of that's injuries. That's not his fault, but Keegan Johnson to be improved from what we saw on the field to last year, I think if not Keegan Johnson, you got to go with somebody that didn't live up to their expectations last year, somebody that underperformed in 2023 and somebody that's going to do some big things in 2024. So that's obviously Keegan Johnson. I'm trying to think of somebody else you can throw in that mix, but somebody that didn't play well last year that had hype last year, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. There's not many guys that really fit that. I mean, you go with Jaden Jackson maybe, but
especially the way that Jaden Jackson started off last year, for sure.
But yeah, I think the guys returning on defense were pretty sound, and the linemen that are returning were pretty sound. Although I think I'm going to say this. Carver Willis had his struggles, but I think this dude's going to be a beast this season.
That's who I was going to go with.
His confidence is so high right now.
Yeah.
When he walks in the room, you go, "Oh Lord, who blocked out the sun?" So this guy's got NFL talent, and I'm glad he's kind of finding that.
Yeah, that's who I was going to go with, was Carver Willis. You're right, Fitz. He struggled some last year. I just think this is the prove it year. This is the year that's, okay, whatever happened in the past. Maybe he didn't understand what he needed to do to be able to play in the Big 12 at this level of college football. Sometimes there's an adjustment. Some people, it happens quick. Some people, it happens later. Either way, the talent is there. You can see it. And I just think that he's going to have a big season this year. I really believe that. I think he's going to have a good season because he's really good. Because when you see it, again, as an offensive lineman, when you see it, you're like, oh, wow. but then it doesn't always happen. You're like, come on, man, come on. I don't think we have to wait for that anymore. I don't think anybody's going to be saying, come on to this guy anymore. I don't believe that.
I've never met a kid that so owned his shortcomings last year. He flat out said, oh, I sucked the first 3 games. And because I was saying they got to get him off the field. And then suddenly it was like, they can't have him off the field.
Right.
He turned into a really good player. So hopefully he picks up where he left off. If he does, this offensive line has a lot of potential to be really good.
Fitz, I think I told you on Monday, like that's the type of dude, let alone his talents on the field, I would let him marry my daughter. Like he's just
a good guy.
Awesome to interview and, just happy, smiling. And so, he was telling D. Scott, like, I don't know if D. Scott was doing a story, if he was just telling him that, but like where the offensive linemen sit, where the, this position group sits in the meetings and all this stuff. And so, not everybody loves talking to us members of the media, but Carver Willis certainly does.
He does. And he does a really good job with it, which isn't typical of all offensive linemen. Right, Brian?
Yeah.
Whatever.
One more that I think you could maybe slip in just because we didn't see much last year was Asa Newsome. Obviously not going to be a starter at that linebacker spot or anything like that, but to make an impact, especially when we talk about the depth of this team, absolutely you can be an improved player from last year.
I agree.
I mean, I know we talked a little bit about that. I don't think we saw enough of them. Kind of what you were mentioning, Fitz. I don't think we saw enough to say, okay, he's going to be super improved. I just think he's really good. Yeah. I think we're going to see more of him just because he got hurt. Yep. I think we're just going to see more of him.
He's just going to be one of those guys that got to figure out how to get him on the field.
That's right.
I really believe that. That's it for the first half of this edition of the Powercat Podcast, sponsored by Fridge Wholesale Liquor. On the other side, we have more of your brilliant questions from Wabash Station. And if you're not subscribing to Go Powercat, we have a sale coming up later this week. Make sure you check that out. I'm sure I'll be tweeting about it. The Go Powercat X account will also be tweeting about it. It still tweets on X. Elon went for exclamations and none of us wanted it. But you want to come back, I promise.
We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
Please visit the Fridge Wholesale Liquor, located at the corner of Claflin and Westport Road in Manhattan, Kansas.
Welcome back to the show. Let's return to the Cats and Dogs studio.
It's Fitz and Gills and the Big B right here in the Cats and Dogs studio. Well, they're not. I am. They're in their own studios.
Studio 73.
Studio 73.
And GPC's hidden studio.
GPC, because we don't want anyone to know where it's at because it's a den of sin.
Only sometimes.
Only sometimes. More of your questions from Wabash Station in just 1 second, but make sure you're supporting our longtime sponsor, the Fridge Wholesale Liquor. You got a chance to do so on Saturday. Please do. Please stop in and thank them for sponsoring the Powercat Podcast. Grab yourself a mix and match 6-pack. Do it like 4 times. That's 1, 2, 3. That's 24 beers. I mathed. I got it right. Stop in the fridge and say hi to everyone. Great people, great prices, great knowledge of the what they're selling. If you have wine questions, whiskey, vodka questions, they're all over it. Check out the Fridge Wholesale Liquor, not from the stadium at the corner of this and that in the town in which we live. More of your questions from Wabash Station. Gills, take it away.
From Go Stay Kate, interesting one here. Why do Kansas kids that stay in state to play football have more success than the Kansas kids that leave the state to play?
That's really good, actually. I think Jared Canick's having plenty of success at Oklahoma. But yeah, I've said this for a long time. I think you've got to have the Kansas kids on your roster because they're invested. This is their program. This is what they grew up watching. In a lot of cases, they were in the stands when they were 8, 10 years old. And when you got more skin in the game, you're kind of more mentally invested. I think that's important. Plus, the state's provided a really good backbone of players. You start with Terrence Newmans and Darren Sproles and Mark Simoneaux and Brooks Barta, and you just go through the years. There's always some Kansas kids that are achieving above what we expected. But I also think it's because Kansas State knows how to develop these kids. They're not impatient with these kids. They invest the time and the energy it takes to have a developmental program, whether that's in the weight room or the film room or just out on the practice field. These kids are allowed to kind of grow up in the program. And for most cases, there's been exceptions. Of course, Darren Sproles was one. They don't step right in and play. But by the time they're ready to play, they're really good players. And I just don't know if other programs are giving these kids the same kind of TLC. I just don't. I think they're expected to come in and if they're going to a major program, they're expected to come right in and play. And it's hard to do at a lot of programs. It's hard to do at Kansas State.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it a number of times. I just believe, Kansas State's got to be able to get the best players out of Kansas. That's for any institution, though. You want to be able to get the best players in your state. Of the top 10 players, Kansas State needs to be able to go get at least 6 of those guys every year if they're capable of playing big-time Power 4 football. So that's what K-State needs to do. Now, we've seen guys, from other places, they go all around, they go other places. Okay, that's fine. But yeah, I think it's important. You got to get the best players from your state. You just do. That's how recruiting works. You work from your campus out. And Kansas high school football hasn't been known, over the test of time to have the greatest high school football. But over the last 10 to 15 years, that's changed not just a little bit, a lot. That Kansas high school football is starting to produce a lot of really, really good football players, and not just in the Kansas City area, because that's what people will think. It's just in the Kansas City metro area, Topeka, Wichita, out in the middle of Kansas, everywhere. They're just starting to play better high school football. That's a testament to the high school coaches, number one. So you want to give them credit. It's also a testament to just what goes on, but I just think Kansas State fits hit it. They do a good job of, hey, we're going to develop you. This is the type of program that we are. You're going to come in. If maybe you're a defensive end that weighs 195 pounds, 6'3", 195 pounds. By the time you hit the field, we want you to be 235 pounds. Well, that's not going to happen in a summer. It just, you got to take some time. If it does, it's mostly fat, and that's a problem. So, it's just going to take some time. And I think a lot of those kids from Kansas understand that and have grown up around that. We're going to develop. We're going to go there. It might be 2 years before we get on the field, but once we do, we're ready to go.
I like how you mentioned Big B. Like think back, guys, 5 years ago, 6 years ago from now, if I were to tell you that the 3 biggest football recruiting wins in the state of Kansas, none of them would be from Kansas City. Obviously, Lincoln, Dillon, and Avery, that speaks volumes to, like you mentioned, Big B, just how much it's growing across the entire state, not just in these big cities.
Big B, one of my theories also is that 7-on-7s changed everything.
Everything.
Because Lincoln Cure was playing national 7-on-7 events with a California team.
That's right.
So these guys now can latch on like AAU basketball and find a team that gets them some exposure and honestly puts them up against better competition. And that was really important for a guy like Lincoln Cure. He's just physically outmatching the players that play at his level in the state of Kansas. But by going out and playing against elite people in 7-on-7 tournaments, you're getting a lot of exposure. And I also think the progress weight rooms and weight programs, strength and conditioning programs have made in Kansas is notable, because the offensive linemen are now coming out a lot more ready to go. They still got a lot of work to do to be Big 12 ready, but it's not a complete rebuild. These kids are big and strong already. They've just got, a little bit more to do before they're ready to step on the field of the Big 12 program. But it's, again, as you said, Big B, you nailed it. It's a compliment to the coaching in the state, which is often underrated because it's not a state known for great high school football, but all of a sudden it's producing more than its share by population than Kansas should, and that's a compliment.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's producing more Fitz and Gills in the terms of power for football. There was always a lot of Kansas kids that went on to play college football, but maybe they're playing Division II, 1AA, junior college route. Because even when I went to junior college, 100 million years ago, there were guys that just came from high school that went there because that's all they could go to. Well, think about that. That's not the case anymore. Just so many more guys are playing Power 4 football from high school. That's what I think is what's so impressive. And you hit it again, Fitz, the 7-on. There's no way that Lincoln Cure is the top-rated tight end in the country by just playing high school football in Kansas. That is 100% impossible. That doesn't have anything to do with his ability or anything, but it's because he got the opportunity to play against top-tier talent and dominate that top-tier talent. That's why he was able to be that. So, yeah, it's changed everything.
Yep.
The landscape of all this high school stuff is totally different, and that is good for Kansas kids because they have that exposure.
Next question from O2 Cat. How much should the offensive side of the ball rotate guys? Is this the time to get those 2s and possibly 3s in-game reps, or do you put down on the 1s to build cohesion?
I think skill position outside of quarterback, we're going to see a lot. I think offensive line, we're going to see a little, if none, early on. You've got to establish this offensive line. They have to get their feet under them. It's a choreographed dance, as Big B will tell you. And if you're out of step with the other guys, it's going to mess everything up. So you need to get those guys on. But I think we're going to see, I don't know if it'll be reminiscent of that first game, that first drive. I don't know if people remember that when they played like 22 players on the first drive of the game. They were running in personnel in different formations like crazy. Maybe that's what they'll do early in the game. They'll just put people out there. Maybe they come back with that triangle formation again. I'm not sure, but I think skill-wise, we're going to see a lot of dudes.
Yeah, I think skill-wise, you'll see a lot of dudes. You'll see, and I know the question was about offense. Look, I've said it over and over again. And it's not just me. I mean, it's in general. You just don't see offensive linemen trading out. You just don't see left tackles and right tackles, rotating in and out. But if you're going to do it, this would be the game to do it, to find out who's what. If you've got an or at that position, this is the game to figure out who's better, and you can make those rotations. But as far as the offensive line, for the most part, put the guys out there that you think are your best players and let them get the reps together, because you keep messing with that, man, and it doesn't work. And that's why nobody does it. It's not because the people can't, oh, well, I'm going to be different, or you know what? Everybody does the same thing with offensive line. They got to be in sync with each other. It's not even stuff that you necessarily even talk about. It's just because of the repetitions that I've been out there so many times with this guy. If there's a twist inside, I know how he's going to pass me that guy. Or I know if I leave him here, that the guy's going to pass him back to me. You get in sync with each other. So you got to have that.
It can take Big B. You probably agree with this, right? It can take a third of a season, maybe half of a season before an offensive line truly gels together and plays to its potential, right? So I agree. Every other, skill position wise, get those guys in, show us, if you're the coaching staff, show us, show us the weapons, all the playmakers, the explosive guys on your roster that you have, show us that. But it's tricky with the offensive line. They've spoken, take a guy like Andrew Linegang, for example. They've spoken so highly of a player like that, but at the same time, you have to build that cohesion. That group needs to gel together on the offensive line. So it's a tricky situation, but I think you've got to just get your group together and let them play together. Because if you just insert one guy in there, right, Big B, that can throw everything off, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you've got to be able to have that cohesion. You can't just constantly be flip-flopping offensive linemen. For number one, injuries are going to happen. That's going to make you do that anyway. But the time to do that is figure that out in practice. In games, guys got to be able to just go out there and get the job done with the guys that they know what they're going to do without even having to say anything. You got to have that cohesion.
Big B, compared to really any other position, is offensive line something that you need real game reps to just get comfortable and master it? Or is that something that you can get very comfortable with in practice with practice reps?
I mean, look, I'm not going to compare myself because I played 1,000,000 years ago, so that I don't think it's relevant. But one thing that I will say is practice matters. As much as some players, myself included, didn't like practice matters. And being able to get those reps in practice and just to understand the concepts of what you're doing. Look, you're going to be going 1,000,000 miles an hour in the game even if you don't think that you are, just because it's an actual game. So you've got to be able to do that in practice. Practice, it matters. So yeah, you can't just go out there in a game and turn it on and get it fixed. You got to go out and get the reps, not just to know what you're doing with play wise, but just fundamental wise. So it becomes repetition. Practice matters.
Not talking about the game. We're talking about practice, man.
Big B's so old that Coffeyville's mascot when he played there were the pterodactyls.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Modern animal to be their mascot.
From Pickles, do you have a better idea of what this offense will look like in terms of scheme than you did this spring?
No, we don't. Maybe it'll look a lot like what we've seen. I'm sure it will in many elements, but how they get to what they want to do might be a little bit different. What they do, we might see more 2-back set than we saw last year, or at least start that way and motion out of it. I'm excited to see this. The flexibility DJ Giddens gives you look at him as a running back, and we talk about Dylan Edwards being able to be the receiver. They both can flip that and do really well. So you might well see them line up with a tight end in the backfield, 2 running backs in the backfield, and end up with none of them behind Avery Johnson, depending on who it is. I mean, you can do a lot of things with this group of players because they're so flexible, and I'm ready to see some of it. Even if we don't get to see a lot of it, I just want to see some little wrinkles here that they might have added in.
Yeah, I mean, we won't see a lot of it this week. We'll see something, but there's just the flexibility that this offense is going to be able to have, maybe some more creativity. Look, we all love Colin Klein, but we heard it, you heard it, we all heard it. It kind of got stale towards the end. Things, you could start calling out plays based on formation. You can't have that in a good offense against big-time competition. We shouldn't be able to call out plays based on down and distance and formation. That just can't happen anymore. So maybe we're going to see a little bit more imagination when it comes to the offense because to win this conference this year, we're going to have that. Not to mention to be able to take advantage of all the versatile players that we have, you got to have some more imagination.
Agreed. Yep.
I agree as well.
Thank you. We're in agreement, apparently.
Last question from Itam Bibi. Any upset alerts involving Big 12 schools this weekend?
Big B, you've been covering this on the Big 12 Insiders. What do you think?
Oh, I mean, first of all, Arizona State, they're hosting Wyoming. I mean, if I was a betting man, I'd bet Wyoming. North Dakota State at Colorado. We're going to find out quick what's going on at Colorado. And I don't mean quick in the game. I'm just talking about the game in general. We're going to find out whether Colorado's offensive and defensive line has any punch to it because North Dakota State is going to challenge them physically. So we're going to find out there. Other than that, the only other game, and again, I'm going to throw this one out there. I know it's a long shot. Just watch the Baylor at Tarleton State. Watch out for that. Have they just cashed it in and just said, we're done? We're done being good under this coach. We don't believe in this coach. I find that hard to believe, but just watch that game. Just watch that game. And it may end up being a blowout. Who knows? I'm just saying that's a team. Number one, I think it's a team in general that they only need a couple of bad things to happen to them, and I believe they will quit. So, and they'll quit on the coach because I believe the alumni has already quit on the coach, and the players know that. And so it's just going to take anything that happens, any type of adversity. They are looking for a reason to just bail out on the coach, and getting down 14-10 at halftime against Tarleton State might very well be it.
Could be.
This should be a weekend where the Big 12 comes pretty close to undefeated, but it won't.
No, it won't.
So we're going to find out. Someone's going to get bit on the butt. Might be Colorado, but I feel like so many people feel it might be. Even Colorado will see it coming.
Correct.
But we'll find out. It's here finally. Thank God it starts on Thursday. So we'll get a little.
There's a lot of games Thursday, Friday.
Yeah. Is Kansas on Friday?
Yep.
I think they are. So yeah, I love it.
TCU at Stanford. That's another one. I don't think Stanford has much, But we're going to find out what TCU had going on the road. That could be a little tougher than what people anticipate. That one's on Friday.
Well, K-State did that a few years ago, went in their early season, and there was no one there. Apparently school wasn't in session because they're on trimesters.
Right.
Well, trimester to go to the game. I mean, it was ridiculous.
I remember seeing that. I was like, there's more people at my house watching than there was at the damn game. That was crazy.
So pathetic.
That's where they had McCaffrey, right?
Yes.
They were not a bad team.
Townies show up.
Nope. I mean, think about it. You would think, because a lot of the people that live around there, a lot of those people went to Stanford.
Right.
But nope. Not going. Football's not our thing.
Guys, real quick, this just shows how much sports betting is growing and evolving. Like a couple years ago, you couldn't find a legal line for FBS, FCS, period, right? Now you can bet on North Dakota State, Colorado. You can bet on K-State against UT Martin. And for reference, it's a 10-point spread, I believe. Colorado's favored over North Dakota State. K-State's at 37.5 last I looked on FanDuel over UT Martin. So, and UT Martin's favored to win that conference, right? So it's not like, I think those are two pretty comparable programs. And so obviously you could put Colorado on upset alert. Yes, absolutely. I agree. But everyone's talking about it, right? Everyone's expecting Colorado to go. I mean, and we'll see what happens. But, you mentioned it, Big B, the trenches, I like the over in that game more than anything. I think Colorado's obviously got the weapons, the playmakers to put up some points. I think North Dakota State can match it. So I'd like North Dakota State to cover, but I like the over in that game more than anything.
Yeah, I do too. The thing about Colorado, I think Colorado may have fixed their offensive line to an extent, because there's no way Deion was going to let his son go out there and get punished again the way he got punished last year. But I don't think they fixed their defensive line at all. I think they just brought in some new guys that couldn't play other places. And when I say couldn't play, they literally couldn't get on the field because they weren't good enough. And they brought those guys in, and I still believe teams are going to be able to just line up and run it right down their throat again.
Well, if North Dakota sees that, they'll do that.
Yeah,
because they're a line up and blow you off the ball type of team, and they're capable of doing it. They put a lot of linemen in the NFL.
Yeah,
they don't mess around up there in Fargo. There are two things to do in Fargo: are to play football and fight off frostbite. That's it.
Did Chris Kleiman tell you that?
No. He says only nice things about Fargo. But we know. He doesn't want to say it. It's too cold. That's it for this edition of the Powercat Podcast. It is game week. Make sure you stop into the fridge and say hi. And we will see you at the Bill on Saturday night. Well, Brian won't be there. He's going to be in his cozy theater room watching college football from wall to wall, from the morning, noon, and night.
I can't wait. I just got a brand new refrigerator, mini fridge that I got upstairs. I got an ice machine that's getting delivered tomorrow. I won't even see my wife from Friday afternoon until Sunday night. I'm not even going to see her. So I got a bathroom upstairs. I got food upstairs. I'm not even going downstairs. So it's just going to be me and the pooch up here watching football.
Damn, that sounds good. Damn. Thank you for listening or watching, and whatever you did. I don't know. We appreciate it so very much.
This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production. Please support this show by subscribing to this YouTube channel or follow us on your favorite podcast platform.